Welcome to the second part of the adventure that I led in the Great Wilderness in the Northwest Highlands of Scotland this summer. This video is of days 2 and 3 of that trip, and we did have a fair mix of conditions and my photographic plans chopped and changed a bit, so maybe it's not quite as coherent as some of the previous videos, but it does pick up exactly from where we left off in the previous video, so I hope you enjoy. Well, the storm has kind of got here. This is some pretty mega wind that we're walking into right now. Definitely time to try and find a sheltered camp spot for tonight. I think that's probably it for sunlight for today, but we'll see. Right, so sorry about that interlude because we had to get out of the rain and the wind to a degree and then get the tents up. So we're kind of in a corrie with a bit of protection here. The wind's actually coming from this direction, so this wall should in theory protect us, but actually it's just swinging around, so it's still quite breezy here. But most of the tents seem to be coping just fine with it, and actually as the day progresses and we get into the night, the wind's going to drop off, so we should be absolutely fine here. And the wind has now eased off, so we are heading up the peak that is just there, which I've just scouted out for the group just to see if it's worth going up, and it certainly is, so that's what we're doing now. So as you can see, it was only a couple of 100 meters over to this promontory, so it was a good place to go to take the group and do some compositional practice. I thought I'd talk to you about composition here, not in the context of how you should position things within the frame, but what composition can do for the interpretation of a photograph. So starting with this view where I've positioned the rock as if it's looking out over this view of the lochs and the mountains in the distance, and I'm encouraging the viewer to do the same. So I'm using the rock as the initial subject, but then also using it to move the viewer out into the distance. And then if I compare that to this second image where the rock is positioned much more centrally, then what I'm saying to the viewer is, look, here's this beautiful and interesting symmetrical rock. Look at it, it's the star of the show. And then you have the landscape used as its beautiful setting. So there's two images there that are actually taken very close together, obviously, of very similar subjects, but hopefully with completely different effects on the viewer. So hopefully that's a concept that you can take forward in your own photography. Of course, a bit of rain later and we were soon heading back to the tents, and we actually spent the rest of the evening chilling out and just relaxing and resting our legs a little, ready for the following day. Good morning on what's a really exciting day, because we are going up one of Scotland's most exciting mountains, A Mhaighdean, often called the most remote Munro. And I'm sure there are people on YouTube who want to argue with me about that, but it's certainly a long way from where we started, and it has absolutely fabulous views too. We had some pretty rough weather yesterday, especially in terms of wind. I'll be interested to see if any of my talky bits have come out through the wind noise, but yeah, it was difficult walking and we had a fair bit of rain too, but that did give us a nice chance to have a proper rest for the night. So we went to bed early and we didn't get up until 8. I mean, it was actually cloudy at sunrise anyway. So We're well rested, and we've actually only got 500 meters of ascent to do, so it shouldn't actually be that difficult today. So we're just going to enjoy the views as we go along and hopefully get up on top of the mountain in time for lunch. Welcome to the top of A Mhaighdean, one of Scotland's finest summits. I say that a lot, but there are a lot of wonderful mountains out here, and this is one of the very best. You can see we're just in the cloud at the moment. The peaks are just poking their heads into the cloud level, but I'm pretty hopeful that things are going to improve, and you can already see that the air clarity is absolutely fantastic. We can see all the way out to the Hebrides from here, so I'm pretty excited for that sunset. And for now, we're going to do the usual thing, get the tents up and just see what happens. It's actually only just past 12 now, so we've not even had our lunch. We've got a long wait up here before sunset, but that's also plenty of time to explore and get sorted.
Like crystal balls and everything's upside down. You can see the mountain in its snot bubble.
Absolutely grim. Once the tents were up, the cloud base did start to lift, and although it was mostly cloudy, we could see all of the surrounding peaks. And so it was a good opportunity to take the clients on a bit of a tour of the mountain, because A Mhaighdean is a pretty extensive summit and there's lots of potential in different areas of the mountain. So we did that so that when the light came good, everybody would have a good idea of where they wanted to be. I did spend some time here trying to make sense of this composition, which I've never really made work in the past. And so I actually spent a long time heading back down the mountain, more than 200 meters on a pretty picky route. But I did find some shots that I thought might work, or at least some areas that might work in better light. So these are all taken on my iPhone. And I found a nice diagonal boulder too that I think would make it a strong shot. But all of these shots that you've just seen are shooting towards Anchelach in a particular direction. So as it turned out, the conditions dictated that I didn't shoot these on this particular evening. So after doing this recce, I headed back up the mountain, in part because it was still a long time until sunset, but also because I wanted to give you guys a tour of the views as well. So this is the classic view, looking over Fionloch and Dubloch from the top of A Mhaighdean, and what an incredible view this is. It's a shame that at the moment we're looking into the sun in this direction, so you can't see the crags so well on the mountains on the left there. But looking over the lochs and into the distance is pretty incredible in itself, and the sun is going to set right down the length of them. So I'm sure the other guys are going to get some great shots up here when the sun eventually comes down. Now, if I take you on a quick walk over this way, so you can see just how close everything is, then this is a different view. So this is looking south towards the mountains of Torridon here at the back. And Slioch is that mountain just there, with this incredible loch below, Gorm Loch Moor. And then, as if that wasn't enough, there's also a view out to the west. So these are some of the mountains of the Fisherfields 6. Ben Tarsewin, this one on the right, is a great one to look down a valley towards Anchelach, which is the last peak I'm going to show you. So I'm just going to run over in this direction. And from here you have a really nice view of our camp there. And the lump on the right is Ruastach Moor, a Munro that I've actually never been up despite walking past it several times. And Anchelach at the back there, one of the most incredible mountains. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I keep saying that, but this area really is very special, and I don't want to make that mountain out to be any less exceptional than it is, because it's probably top 5 in all of Scotland. So that's Anchellach over there. So I'm going to go down to the tents and then back up onto that hill over there. That's where some of the clients are shooting at the moment, and then I'm going to continue down to find an alternative viewpoint. So now we have this fantastic view looking over towards Anchellach and over Fuarloch down here at the bottom. I love this scene, but it doesn't quite fit together compositionally. The loch is too far off to the left relative to the mountain, which is a bit too far to the right, so it just feels a bit lopsided to me. And what I want to do is shift the loch off to the right so that it is more beneath the mountain. And in order to do that, I need to walk over there. But not just over to where Steve is standing there, much further on. So this is as far as we can move to the left on good ground, and you can see that that composition still doesn't quite fit together. The loch's a bit too dominant and it's a bit too far onto the left. So you could do a much more zoomed in scene. So this panorama crop that I was mentioning earlier, that works quite well. And actually Steve, who's upslope from me, is shooting just that right now, and this is a good position to shoot that from, because in doing that you actually shift this flat area here to the right and out of frame, and bring the lakes there a bit closer to Anchellach. And this is that panorama. I actually waited for a pretty considerable time to get that hillside on the right into sunlight. In shadow it was just a bit too heavy and block-like for the rest of the image. But even after waiting, I'm not quite sure that this one balances. You've got some very open blue sky on the left there, and very open ground also on the left, even though the lochs do provide some interest and some counterbalance to the mountain on the right. But I still think it's a little bit right heavy, and maybe this longer lens shot of Anchellach, as simple as it is actually the stronger image. So just as we've been shooting this incredible view behind me, and I've been waiting for the sun to drop down before heading down these pinnacles for the second time today, this mist has rolled in. It's pretty much all around me at the moment, and I'm wondering if it's actually going to be worth heading down the hill, because it's a fair old effort getting down there, and if I can't see the mountains, then it's not going to be worth it. And I'm thinking maybe if this settles at twilight, then I want to be on top of the hill. It's really hard to guess what's best now, but I certainly think that if I go down, I'm risking just putting in a lot of effort for no reward, whereas if I'm at the top of the hill, at least I've got a bit more flexibility about which directions I shoot in, because that shot down there is very much tied up with shooting in the direction behind me. So although I'd planned to go take this scrambling route and shoot a composition I'd actually never tried before, I'm probably going to head back up the hill now and join the other guy. Holy shit, look at that. That is incredible. I'm pretty glad I came up here, because I would have been down in that, which would have made me look like a right fool. I didn't quite have enough time to capture a still a second ago, and as you can see it's thickened up again, so just crossing my fingers that it's going to open out and I can get a shot of that loch below. If you want to know why we slog it up mountains like this and go hiking in bad weather like we did yesterday and sometimes end up unsuccessful, it's for moments like this. This is incredible, and I've been up here plenty of times before, but I've never seen it like this. I mean, even looking now, I've just got to take another shot. I just bit lost for words, really. I mean, what an incredible view out to the sea over these lochs, Fionn Loch and Dove Loch. There's this amazing colour contrast between the last sunlit mist that we've got here and the blue of the water with the reflected sky there. It's just so special being up here. All the clients are up there above me shooting exactly the same thing. Just utterly incredible. So I guess my glee is pretty self-evident there. It really was quite a thrilling moment to shoot. I actually photographed this scene upwards of 20 times as the cloud position changed. And you can see here, this is now beautifully framing the loch. That's one of the benefits of taking a lot of photos. It was also important because the sun was coming in and out of very, very thin cloud, which just turned the sun into this huge blotchy shape, which I think would have spoilt the shot. But I can hardly think of a better display of natural beauty in Scotland than this. It really was an incredible moment and a real highlight of the trip, the kind of moment that I would hike many, many days for. But as the light changed, our shoot continued. Okay, I'm trying to calm down a bit now so that I don't appear like a lunatic on camera, but I am just shooting one final scene here. So you can see the sun is actually just setting on the Outer Hebrides over there, and there's a tiny little portrait frame that you can possibly make out beneath the sun, and that's what I'm shooting here, although you can't quite make it out on the back of my screen. So just a telephoto tight image of where the sun's coming down over there. And these guys are shooting the same thing. So we've just watched the sunset, and we're now in a period where the sky above us is still providing quite a lot of fill light. And actually the light's going to improve again in maybe 10-20 minutes, because what happens is the light starts to come out of the sky above and become more concentrated towards the horizon, which then creates a band of light effectively on the horizon, which creates this lovely side light. So that's when photographers really get excited about blue hour light, because it's quite a sculpting light. So I'm hoping that the crags down here are going to become more and more pronounced, because actually when the sun was up you could barely see them at all, because they were just lost in a bit of haze and a lack of lighting on their fringes. So we'll maybe try and shoot these crags down here as the light improves. Blue hour has arrived and everybody is up here. Most of us are now shooting the same scene, these crags down here, and they have got this lovely side light on them. But one key tip here, which actually some of the guys weren't entirely familiar with, was that you can still use a polarizer even in blue hour to improve the contrast of a scene. So I'm going to show you two photos now, both the raw photos that I just took. One without a polarizer, so there is no polarizer at all on the lens, and then one with it added, and you can see the incredible difference in contrast. And I thought I'd just emphasize what an incredible difference there is between this image on the left and the image on the right. I don't think you could ever edit the image on the left in a computer to make it look anything like as good as the image on the right. The ability of the polarizer to cut through the haze and improve the definition in the sky really is pretty unparalleled. So an enormous difference there, and particularly because I was shooting at 90 degrees to the lighting direction. If you were shooting towards the light or away from it, then you'd see no difference at all. But I did shoot three versions of this, starting with this widest scene, which is probably my favourite. I love this concept of the mountains sat on top of these vast cliffs. And in fact, I have shot this scene before, but I think this is the best I have managed to capture it. But I did also shoot a longer lens image, which maybe makes a bit of a focus of the pool that you see at the bottom and its relationship with the little cloud sat there in the corrie, but perhaps that is a little bit too similar to the wider photo that I just showed you. So I think the second image that I'll put into my portfolio is this much tighter view of just the arrangement of mountains here. And although this looks like one gigantic, super impressive mountain, it's actually a combination of Benet and Liach together. And I think this arrangement of these two mountains is probably as good a ridgeline view as you can find in the UK, which is part of the reason that I'm going to keep it as a separate shot. And it is very sharp too, thanks to the completely windless conditions that we finished on. So what a remarkable evening that was. And unfortunately we didn't have any any good conditions the following morning. So this is the end of the video, and in fact I didn't record any more from this trip, but I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, then please do subscribe, and if you'd like to join on an adventure, then have a look at my website alexnail.com.